favorite bitches say I'm delicious. I'ma have all you motherfuckers laying a ditch. I'ma kill all you rappers, I'ma aim with precision. They was rocking with your ass to the
Yo, what is up, everybody? Live Reality Games Podcast. I'm Daniel Ball. He's Steven Stewart, and we are bringing you the recap. Survivor 47, episode 10. And to be honest, Steven, it was a good episode, but I was a little not as eventful as the past few episodes. I was really thought I think I fell asleep during this tribal. It just wasn't the same.
Well, Daniel, I have a question for you. If I establish the Kyle fan club, does this mean we can't be friends?
We can still be friends, but it's going to be an awkward when one goes. It's going to be just very awkward between us.
And when you say goes, when Sue murders Kyle, is that what you're inferring?
To me, it seems like that's what she's been setting up for the past 3 weeks, and we've seen zero action. So,
surely the supercuts of Sue disliking Kyle fueled your experience this episode.
Yes, it is. It is coming. I feel like the cup is about to runneth over here with our Kyle and Sue. They're just giving us a lot of foreshadowing. Something's got to give, and hopefully, it's Sue edging out Kyle. Which I would make the assumption that it would be Sue if she has an idol, or at least if it's between the two of them. But what is you're the professor. I've been asking you the past couple of weeks what do you grade this episode? And I know you're in holiday mode, and I don't want
I know, right? What is grading? This is a good 8 out. I think this is a good 8 to 8.5 out of 10, because I really love the dilemma at the end of do we go for the level 1 and we break up this large alliance, or are we so we need to take out these big players? Genevieve's a big player. Do we do that? And to be honest, I know they made probably the call I would have let's just dismantle a large alliance, but they could have been greedy, because I think Kyle would not have been okay with staying with the 4 as much as Gabe was it's all about the 4.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's the decision that I would go with is all right, let's break up this big alliance, because it's not like they didn't get somebody who is a good player. They got one of the stronger players out. But now I feel like if you're wanting to gun for Genevieve, now is a good time to do that. Now that you've gotten one, you've weakened that former Tuku tribe, and now you can bring a solid group of people to make a concerted effort towards Genevieve. And I think Teeny, this episode really she wanted to go ahead and make that move. But she also, once again, doesn't want to be on the wrong side. And I think she knows as well as we do is that Genevieve, it doesn't have to happen right this second. It can happen, but it doesn't have to happen now.
I think it's also in terms of power dynamics. If Genevieve goes home, there's this very, very real threat of this block of 4 just deciding who goes, right? And with Gabe going home, things are at this point the field feels very open and scattered. Yes, you have this kind of ragtag red yellow alliance, but that's not going to last.
Right. And what I find interesting is that each week there have been discussions about multiple people. It's never been this is our target and we're going after them and it comes to fruition. It's always well, this is a good target, and then all of a sudden, well, this might be a better target. And then it kind of shifts the focus of everybody. And Gabe, I think, was an initial target, but then it started focusing on, well, what about Genevieve? And so, getting back to your original point, yeah, I think the dynamics of, when to go for certain players at certain times, it's important. But you don't want to make moves just for the sake of making a big move, especially when the opportunity is probably going to present itself again. And I think with Genevieve, you can make the big move and get her out, but I think it's making a move for the sake of making a big move, and you definitely have time to revisit that. Because I don't know how strong of a threat she is in challenges, because Kyle has just been dominating everything. So it's on surface level, you believe that, well, she's not going to win immunity because it's either going to be Kyle or Sue. And I say Sue because that's
give props to Sue because she is fighting Kyle every single challenge.
every time. So, if you're looking at Genevieve not earning immunity and kind of ruining the plan, like maybe, but the odds of that happening, that's when you go, all right, Kyle, put up or shut up, buddy. Like, if you want to stay in this game, win immunity so we can get old Genevieve out. But you see Genevieve in the beginning. She tells Teeny about her idea for Saul and confesses, Teeny then confesses, and which I liked seeing that they put this in. Teeny confessed to Genevieve that Andy told her which way everyone was voting at the tribal, which that does two things. One, it shows that Teeny's in the know with the right people. And then two, it shows that she can't really trust Genevieve that much. And Genevieve was supposedly her, one of her alliance members and supposed to be working with her. But, obviously they talk about it, and Teeny is very, upfront, and she's very, very honest with her about, she's hurt and she feels like, she did that just to make her look foolish. And I thought for a second that Teeny was kind of showing a little bit of weakness, just being super emotional about a game move. And it was a big game move and a good game move for Genevieve. But then again, I thought about it later. I was like, man, that is kind of messed up that the person that you think is your person is not being completely honest with how they're going to vote.
So question to you. So I feel like last week, I know at least I was very lauding Genevieve. It's like, she's getting away with murder. She's voting out Saul. People aren't like, yes, some people know it's her, but not everyone's realizing her. When we get to this episode, and it's like, no, everyone knows it was her that pulled this off. This was not as stealthy as maybe as we had initially thought coming out of that episode. And you kind of talked opening up about big moves for the sake of big moves. Was looking now at the Saul elimination, was this a big move for the sake of big moves? Was this a bad move for Genevieve overall?
I mean, I think it's a bad move because, I mean, it really puts an even bigger target on her back from all these other people, because they're looking at her and they're like, well, she's kind of scary player. She's playing this game and she's cutthroat. And like she told Teeny, like, I don't want to have any emotional connection to anybody.
Except you. I'm okay with you.
I mean, like, I got a clip.
Everything she does sketches me out.
So scary.
Genevieve, I think, exposed herself as the very calculated player that she is. She is an assassin out here. I've known it from the beginning. I tried to play with her, but now she's proved to me she cannot be trusted. I know Andy and we are scared of her.
Very terrifying.
That's Andy and Teeny having a conversation about Genevieve and how much of a threat that she is. And if you think about it, who is kind of running a lot of the votes right now? I mean, you're looking at the two that are kind of the catalyst, because Andy's got a lot of power right now and is very influential in some of these votes. And if he's saying, well, Genevieve is the person, then it's only a matter of time, I feel like, before everybody else starts getting on board. And then you throw the Saul vote in there for the sake of claiming a big move. But in reality, it seems like now, after the fact, it really wasn't that big of a move.
I think, like all things, this will be very results oriented. If Genevieve gets to the end and wins the season, she's like, it was all worth it. But I do think one thing I liked a lot about this move was she did it at a time where the numbers were so thin that she was vital to keep around. Right? Yes, she busts Saul, but then the players needed her and couldn't get rid of her immediately, despite her being this juicy target. And next round, what happens is, let's say Kyle loses immunity. Then it's like, well, we could get Genevieve out, or Kyle can win immunity number 5. And Sam is starting to become a bigger and bigger presence, and people are like, well, like, how much do you want him driving this like counter alliance that's popped up? And so, it seems like she may get away with murder, but again, it's too early to call.
Yeah, and I think the way that they leave it is, they both know, it seems like, that it's evident that they're going to have to come across each other at some point because just like anybody, you can't have two winners. It can only be one. So if me and you are at odds with each other, or not even at odds, if we're trying to win the game, like we're going to do some things that may not be beneficial for us as an alliance to win a game at some point. And I think they realize that, but Genevieve is still adamant though that she wants the Tuku split, because I think she's telling Andy this because she's wanting the heat off her, because I think she knows the Saul move is now she's getting some blowback and she's got to put out some fires with that.
Which is what I was so wrong last week. Where I'm like, I really feel like Genevieve is like kind of like sticking with the Blues. That's her path forward. And the answer is no. Immediately the Blues and Genevieve are just like, what needs to go? And it's like, oh shoot, I guess not.
Yeah. Andy tells Rachel Genevieve wants her out, and Rachel and Andy agree to work together. I don't. So all right. So maybe you can help me with this. Rachel is such a I don't know what to think about Rachel, because one minute she's in the game and it seems like she's moving in the right direction, and then other times she's very stagnant. And then now you have Andy who's telling Rachel that Genevieve wants her out, and now they're agreeing. I just don't know what Rachel what's her plan. And I feel like she has it to win. She could win, but I just don't know what her plan is to get there.
I feel it's been hard for Rachel because her alliance has been so fractured. We get the scene with her and Sam at the foot wash station, quasi mini spa day, and it's very clear to yes, we're in the same tribe, but you burned me. You immediately told people you blew up my spot, and how am I supposed to trust you? And so I feel like she's really scrabbling to try to figure out alliances. And I think the game is about to be very wide open because everyone has turned on every single person at this point, and I think that'll give her a lot of leeway moving forward.
Well, who's the one person that if they got voted out next week, it would turn the game upside down? Because at this point, I think I want chaos. I think somebody like Sue would thrive in a situation where there's a lot of chaos, because she can fly under that radar and just keep holding on to her idol for another week. But
I think Sam going home, I think, would be the most surprising. Yeah. I don't think he's going to be going home next episode.
No. I think Teeny going home would really flip the game upside down. And I say that just because I think every week I talk to you, it's like she has a foothold in every little mini, alliance. And that's a good thing currently, because she's able to get valuable information and vote the right way, even when it's against her number one ally. But at some point, I think I've said it before, she's going to have to pick something. And I think hopefully sooner than later, because if she did get voted out, I think she's that glue person where now it's kind of flipped upside down. Now, what is going on?
Who is she gluing together? Who is she bringing together at this point?
So that's the thing. I feel like it's her and Andy some kind of way, but also there are moments where, this past episode, where she wants to hate Genevieve, but yet she's still holding her close to the vest. I don't know if it's because it's well, keep your friends close and your enemies closer type deal now that feels like she's been betrayed, or if it's literally I know that I want to go to the end with her. I know that they've mentioned that, but I don't know if that's really the case, because
I think for Teeny, you have only one player from your starting tribe left. That's Genevieve, right? Yep. And despite the rock relationship, you have the most relationship with them. Again, because this is day 17? Something wild like that?
Yeah, so I mean...
it's day 17, 8 players left. I think you need to rely on Genevieve now only so much, because Genevieve has betrayed you twice and likely will betray you again. But I think in the short term, I think Genevieve is someone you can work with, but you have to keep an eye on them.
Yeah, I think Genevieve might with Teeny in particular. I think she's kind of used up that screw up free pass, that one free pass that you get. And I think Teeny actually holds a lot of power in that relationship with Genevieve. And I think it would benefit Teeny to stay aligned with Genevieve if she can, because it's a shield and it's someone that everyone else has talked about being okay with leaving. So if you keep her close, you always know, well, I can always push the vote on her. And it's something that I wanted anyways. But also, if I need to move forward and I need someone, then she kind of owes me one. But I don't know. I feel more lost each week, but I think it's only because
that's a different TV show series.
It is. It's very different. I just feel like every week when someone from a different tribe goes home, then it makes things a little bit more muddier. And I think the producers are doing some editing and it's great, but you don't see a whole lot of like who's working with who. You see like fractures of people, but not ever like a group consensus. It's always like 3 people or 2 people, or we're going to go to a reward and we're going to talk about this, but we really know it's not that. Just little things, but there's no like solid uniform like plan from any one big group of people. And that's why I was still baffled last week how it ended up being such a landslide like it was. And even this week was basically a landslide too. So there's obviously some type of allegiance going on. I'm blind to it. Maybe I'm looking too far down the rabbit hole and not seeing what's in front of me, but
CBS release the live feeds. We need 24/7 access to these people starving in their misery.
Yeah. Do you think, is that something that's been talked about? Like, you're a Reddit guy. Is that something that they talk about on Reddit? Like having 24
live feeds? No, I mean, I've heard people kind of want it, but I don't think that's ever going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
Big Brother's a little bit different because you're confined to the space and you don't have to deal with night and weather and all that. So it's probably a little bit easier. They do have a reward challenge. They randomly get split up into teams of 3. Do you have any inside information on how these teams were created?
Only Jeff Probst knows.
Yeah, I mean, so randomly, you get blue team Kyle, Rachel, Sam. You get yellow team Genevieve, Teeny, Sue, and then red team Andy, Caroline, Gabe. When you look at these teams on the surface, I mean, was there anything in you that was like, I don't think Kyle and Sam are gonna win this immunity? Like I
would just be like, give me Kyle, give me Kyle, give me Kyle.
Yeah.
That's the only thing going through my head. The randoms are like, please give me Kyle. I'm like,
Rachel gets Kyle and then gets Sam too, and she's like, wow, I lucked into this, man. Oh, it was inevitable. The blue team ended up winning by a hefty margin, in my opinion. What do you think about the challenge, the reward challenge itself?
I mean, it's the challenge I don't think I ever want to do, of shove your face in the sand and like crawl this ball over these hills. It seems it looks funny on TV. It seems really hard to do. I don't blame Andy for just using your mouth and biting the thing to move it at that point.
I mean, it's, in my opinion, it's survival of the fittest. It's like, do whatever you got to do just to move the ball, because sand tastes terrible, it feels terrible, and it's in every crevice that you got, and it's just like, please let me get out of this. And oh, by the way,
it's coarse, it gets everywhere.
Yeah, and we're gonna tie your hands and your feet too. So push this with your face and your shoulder. And
yeah, I was curious. I thought Joe would say no shoulder, face only.
I think he realized how difficult it was once you got it up on the hill, because they had to go over those mounds. Like, gravity is going to take control, and like your head is very round, and like it's not easy to keep a round object on a round object and keep it from rolling one way or the other.
It does seem like the secret strategy is let someone bulldoze the path and you just follow them through. Like they're like, just follow Kyle's trail. That's all that
Yep.
matters.
I'm gonna worm this path out for you. You just follow it in. Follow it in. Yeah, I don't know. It was an okay. Like they got the balls where they needed to get them, and then they had to roll them into like I don't know, like trying to think. It's like American Gladiators. There was a one event called, I think it was called, I don't know, but they had to roll these balls into these pods. And basically that's what they're doing. Like they're rolling a ball into a pod and having to get it to stick. Each person had to get one ball to stick. And like I said, blue team just destroyed everybody. And like, I think everyone else was looking and they were like, well, do we even try? You know, because they were so far ahead. So the blue team, Kyle, Rachel, and Sam get to go to the sanctuary where good things happen.
And you get rice.
You get rice. So there's that. And they got rice, and they got wraps, and it was, they did have fruit. So I will say this.
Cookies and cream cake.
Yes. Out of all the things that they've had at the sanctuary that looks edible, the fruit actually looked the best out of everything. And I'm not a kiwi person, but those kiwis look nice and green. And
are you more of a pineapple person?
I'm neither, really. Just give me like a banana. Like I'm satisfied with banana, strawberry, apple. Like I don't know.
When
Not
they
really.
showed the cake, I was like, for a hot second, I was like, please let there be a clue or something written like on the little cake platter or something like that, very Survivor Australia style. But we got none of that.
Yeah, it would be nice if something was like, written in icing on the cake, and like Kyle grabs the cake, sees it, and then just like takes a huge bite out of it just to like keep anybody else from seeing it.
Have you seen those reward challenges in Australian Survivor? They're like, there's a giant candy store with all this stuff, but there's a clue hidden inside, and people just ransack it, and they're taking like fistfuls of cake. It is always those scenes are wild to watch.
I've seen one season of Survivor Australia, and it was a cookie jar, and in the cookie jar was an idol. But like it was, you had to eat a lot of cookies to get to this idol, or you had to pull them out and crush all the cookies, which I think is what ended up happening. And people knew that someone was digging through it. But so at the sanctuary, obviously they have a meal, they have cake. Kyle, says he's going to flip the script, and Gabe, being what he perceives as the strongest player, he wants to get Gabe before Gabe gets Kyle. So, Sam tells Kyle that there are people seeing a very strong Tuku, and like that's probably a good move if you want to do that now. I think, Sam's telling him, hey, there's a lot of traction behind a Tuku going home. So if that's your plan, it would probably work. Kyle says maybe it's time to flip, and he kind of battles with that inner, feeling of, well, do I flip? Do I stay true? What do I do? They also say that Gabe maybe not Gabe, maybe Genevieve should get a vote. And Rachel really wants Genevieve out, but doesn't know if she can trust Sam to work with him based on how the last Saul vote went, when, she relays the information about Saul and he goes and he kind of blows it up. So at this point, at the sanctuary, it looks like, the stage is being set for a Tuku to go home. And, there is this possibility that it could be a random occurrence that Genevieve gets some traction on a vote, but it seems like they at the sanctuary want to push Gabe.
So question for you.
Yeah.
Should last episode should Blue have just turned on Kyle at that point, saying, hey, it is inevitable one of us is going home. Like, even if we survive at the final 10, at final 9, we are too juicy of a target. Should they have just bust Kyle then? So when we got to the final 9, people are like, we're not as worried about this group because they're not going to be an easy majority anymore.
Yeah, I think that that was the discussion a while back about Tuku and their strength is do we want to go after a Tuku when we could get this person? And there
At
was that
that like 6-person travel council where Rachel like says
right.
yeah, and then one of the
Yep.
blue gets eaten.
Yep. And so that's what they went with. And here is a situation where I think the numbers are back in that situation where you're Tuku strong. And like, I think last week, if they do go Kyle, I think this week, I think you might see Genevieve going home. I don't think it's Gabe. Just because I think Caroline's going to go with whatever Sue and Gabe go with. Gabe's not going to vote for himself, and Sue's not going to vote for him, even though, it at some point, you've got to foresee yourself and who you can beat. And I don't think Sue thinks she can beat Gabe. So I think that's a battle that she would have to fight back, down the line. But even still, it is. I think they should have went with Kyle last week, and then this week would have been different. But here we are. It's Gabe and not Kyle, and it is what it is. They let Kyle have the opportunity to win an immunity, and what do you know? He won immunity. I'll ask you, if he doesn't win immunity, do you still think it's Gabe? Let's say
I was going to ask you that as well.
Sue. Let's say it's Sue that wins instead of Kyle, because I feel like she's like her winning would be irrelevant. I don't think it was going to be her regardless. So let's say she wins immunity, and then Kyle and Gabe are both eligible to be voted out. Do you think at that point it's a Tuku? And is it Gabe? Is it Kyle?
I think at that point, Blue is looking to eat its own. They would nominate. I think Sue. I think Sue had been pushing for Kyle. I think Gabe like is what it is. And I think it was just a question as to someone to flip the script and take with Gabe instead. But I do think it is more likely than not Kyle goes home, but I wouldn't say guaranteed.
Do you see we see a lot of Sue and her feelings towards Kyle, but we don't see the reciprocate. Like we don't see a lot of Kyle.
It may be a one-sided rivalry. Who knows?
So to me, I feel like Kyle, when he's if he doesn't have immunity, part of me thinks he thinks him and Sue are good, because there's no inclination from him of whether she's still got this vendetta against him or this grudge, or that they're not even getting along. And maybe that's her gamesmanship and she's doing a good job, and then she's doing her confessionals talking about him in bad light. But either way, I still think at some point that's got to come to a head, and I feel like, or at least I want that to come to a head soon, because I'm tired of seeing the foreshadowings of, is it Kyle? Is it Sue? It's like,
I like my foreshadowing,
boiling
being
over.
hit over the head with a hammer. I like it being. It's like, this is a thing. I want you to remember. It's like, okay, Survivor, I get it. They don't like each other.
So speaking of Sue, back at the Becca camp, Genevieve is mothering, but Sue is grandmothering. That's the funniest thing I've heard all week. That's classic. As the president of the Survivor fan club, our approach is always one of mothering, but we take mothering to the next level. We grandmother. So yes, we're looking out for everyone, and when they cross us, we're gonna get our switch out and we're gonna do some work. So we're not.
So question for you. Sue's face looked really dirty this entire episode. And I don't know if it was unintentional dirt. I don't know if this was intentional dirt. I don't know if it was like some sort of skin condition reaction to the sunlight, but I was just kept watching I was like, it's just, she looks like she's just like this. No, I don't know.
I wish I knew you were gonna say this, because I don't know. I would have pulled this clip, but I don't know if you remember. But I think episode 3 or 4, I told you, I said, she may not look 72 right now, but in a couple of weeks, that Botox is going to wear out, and that dirt's going to start collecting. And I think this is like word for word verbatim what I said about her. And I said, she's going to look terrible. And as the president, we're leaning into this, and we're going to, use this as we're playing very hard and aggressive Survivor game. And this, you got to get dirty to win, man. You just got to get dirty to win.
We mentioned earlier, like, who are people working with? It's hard to know. With Sue, right? We know she's a tight relationship with Caroline, even though Caroline just blindsided her. Her number one Gabe is gone. We don't, to our knowledge, we don't think Sue knew about it, right? Because if Sue knew, we probably would have gotten like, should I play an idol for my ally confessional? But we didn't even get that. She hates Kyle. We've seen her interact with Andy. Who else have we seen like in meaningful interaction with Sue?
I mean, Genevieve to an extent, but I think it's through Andy. Like, Andy now has, and I don't know how to feel about this. Like, I was a little thrown off when Andy's, telling Sue he wants to work with her. And part of me is like, no, you don't. Like,
I would tell everyone that.
Yeah.
Like, that's Survivor One. You go, each person's like, I really
want to work with
you. I want to work with you. Let's go to the end. Especially, and like, you want to at least have that conversation. People's like, well, I don't know if I trust Daniel, but he said the right things, and so maybe there's something we can do here.
But still, like, she is down to work with Andy as long as they go for Kyle. She's happy to work with anybody. And like I said, this is too much for me. I'm ready for her to make this move on Kyle, and let's be done with it, or pull the wool over everybody's eyes and work together behind the scenes and make everybody think that you don't like each other. I mean, do something.
So let's talk about Andy's web. We get this kind of elaborate spider imagery as Andy's talking about these alliances he's making. And Mary Duda saying, Andy's giving me big third place vibe energy. But like, could Andy pull it off? Because you kind of said he's kind of ensconced himself in the middle with everyone. And maybe the answer is no one's voting him out because everyone thinks they can beat him. Therefore, he just doesn't matter. So even though he thinks he's playing well, no one sees it or recognizes it. But what should Andy be looking to do to flip the script and make people say, oh, shoot, he is a contender, and therefore he may be able to earn votes at the end?
I think for him, it's you continue to do what you're doing, because name a vote or that was a direct reflection of his work. I don't think there is one.
I mean, he's probably going to say Annika. Right, but that's
Okay.
not good because that's pre-merge.
Right, and that was anything pre-merge for Andy is not a good place for him to.
He may say Sierra, like he may claim the Sierra vote and say, "I flipped, I made it happen." To what extent people give him credit for that, we'll have to see. I don't know.
But the reason why I think he could win is for that reason right there, is because he can claim a couple of these moves for his own, but there's not a lot of blood on his hands. It's a lot of him being a part of it. So I don't think there's anybody that would be on the jury right now that is just like, I hate Andy. And Sam even said it himself, or it was Sam or Rachel won. Somebody said in this episode, outside of the emotional issues that Andy had, like, he's been an enjoyable person. He's not a bad person. It's just, I don't know how much I can trust of him moving forward. And which I agree with, but obviously, like, that's part of the game. Like, do you fully trust anybody in this game?
Yeah. I mean, I think if we can see Andy pull together this coalition of people to make something happen, it's a little bit like a Saul vote, where it's like, this wasn't something people were considering, and like he's able to kind of help orchestrate it together. I think that would solve everything. The problem is, like, as we know in Sarah, just sitting at the end just is not enough, right? Like, so even sitting at the end saying no one ever voted for me, my like, I played a perfect game. That's maybe you can pitch it well, but sometimes it just isn't enough.
Yeah, going back to Mary's question. I really think him getting votes or no votes comes down to who's sitting with him, really. Because if it's people that aren't going to garner that much votes, like to me, Genevieve, if he's sitting next to Genevieve is someone who I don't think maybe gets all of the votes. She might get enough to win, but I think she's doing I don't think she's getting Saul's vote.
I mean, what's nice about blindsiding early jurors is that there is 10 days, like over a week from the sit at Ponderosa to come to terms and to reevaluate things. It's the jurors who get sent in fifth and fourth, who's been 1 to 2 days, who are really still reeling from the experience and processing. That's where it's painful. I think the early jurors, you have a better shot about getting them back, especially if you can if you can placate them well at tribal council versus the most recent ones. The motions are still so high. That's what makes LRG so hard. It's oftentimes you put the jury there in the span of 12 to 48 hours. So it's very raw.
Yeah, I mean, you literally could be in the game for 2 days and then out of the game, and then an hour later you're having to make a decision on who's winning a game. And you're right. That's a tough, and you're probably going to be able to get more votes from people that you might have had to play the game against if they're early vote outs, as opposed to the closer you get to the end. Because now you're starting to get closer and closer to the end. And I think once you get down to 5, 6 or 5, all of those vote outs hurt. Mary says Saul's a gamer. He would vote for the player the most in control, and that's the most strategic. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. But I think if Teeny and Genevieve are both sitting at the end, and Andy, let's say, I think it's either Andy or Teeny, and it's probably going to be Teeny in this particular case, even though she voted against
Daniel.
him.
Who had a better outfit, Sierra or Saul on the jury?
Oh man, Saul looked like Aladdin, and Sierra looked like she was going to pick sunflowers. I don't know. I'm definitely going with Saul because, now that you mention it, Sierra, her outfit, stands out. But I said something in real time about Saul's outfit. I was like, man, is that Aladdin? Who is this guy? And he just looked I know it was raining and the weather wasn't great, but he just looked like he was just angry at the world.
So let's say you go on Survivor, you make the merge, make the jury, but you're voted out early. What would be your outfit? What would you pack to wear or want to bring for that?
Ooh, that's I would I don't know. Probably pajamas. I mean,
just be as comfortable as possible.
Exactly. I'm just well, I guess we're gonna be here a while. Let's see what this is all about. Be like, hey Jeff, you bring some of that popcorn that you're famous for giving away. Let me get some of that. But I don't know. It's a good question. I don't think I would.
Distinction.
Yeah, I don't think I would pack that well for it because in my head I wouldn't want to think about the end. What am I doing sitting in the jury? I want to think about what am I wearing during the game, But
you're clearly not trying to parlay this experience into Instagram and reality TV stardom, I take it.
No, not at all. It's if that's a byproduct of it, great. But I don't think you're going to see me hopelessly trying to. I'm not looking for followers when I'm sitting on the jury. So. But we got to talk about it. The challenge, the immunity challenge, started with a Rice negotiation.
Is it a negotiation when Jeff just says, "I want 4 and 4 people only"?
I mean, it's like an auction. Here's the starting bid is 4 sit-outs, and you don't get 4 sit-outs, but you get how about 2 shots in the dark? And that was immediately no. And then Kyle throws out there, how about everybody shot in the dark? So I want to ask you, is this a generic, like, does this happen organically, or was this something
It's more
where
organic.
I think so? Like I've seen some people go, oh, they probably threw out the idea prior to them going, and Jeff was like, okay, well, let's go that route. And so they did, and that's what it played out to be. But I feel like I guess my only question is, okay, when he said when four people don't want to sit out, then why did Caroline, like, why did she just immediately go to shot in the dark? Like, and why was it two? Like, it seemed like it was something that she had thought about and was like, hey, if four people don't sit out, what's the next
Well, maybe,
option? But why would she
I
choose
forgot
that?
that Caroline said that, but I felt like what Kyle said was very not premeditated. It was very just spur of the moment. It's like, what if we all did it?
And I don't know. How do you feel about them being able to negotiate that?
Sure. I mean, if Survivor is arbitrarily not going to give players rights, make them starve, and force them to give some sort of like deal to get it, I think that players should be able to negotiate with whatever they have. And I forgot they have shot in the dark, and that is something that Jeff Clear was like, "Wow, sure, I'll take all your shots in the dark." Now, I would be sad because even if I don't play it, I want to take it home with me as a memento. Same thing like whenever like they merge, drop their buffs. Like I would be stuffing my buff in my pocket to take with me.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure maybe they do, but I'm like, I'm not giving up any of these things.
And I think I would feel the same way Sam felt in this particular moment. Is I could easily not go. I could easily go without rice. And I say that, but I don't know. Like, I haven't gone 17 days eating the bare minimum of what they had. But Sam also went to a reward that day. And so it's easy for him to be like, I can
tough out a day or two more and try to win more food.
Right. And so I would still kind of feel like he feels like I'm not going to keep the tribe from getting rice. So I could be that guy, but I don't think he needed any more heat or any more of a target on him. And so you see him kind of just like lay over and give the majority what they wanted. Do you think that if somebody in this case decides they don't want to go with the group, because at this point, everyone seemed like they agreed with giving up their shot in the dark, if one person didn't and it was just one person, do you think that would have put a target on their back, or would that have been understood?
I think people would have been annoyed with them. I don't know if that would target them per se, but I think it was something that people could use against them later.
I did see online, secret scenes that weren't in, and I guess one of the scenes was Caroline, and she was like really having a tough time and having a borderline breakdown because she was hungry, and like she was hoping that she would have the opportunity to go eat something or even rice. And so then you see like later on in the episode that there is a rice, negotiation, and she maybe that's why she's like, well, I'm going to throw out whatever I can because I really want something to eat. So maybe it was just that was the thing. But I feel like that should have been in the episode, and I get it. You can't put everything in there, but I think that's
it doesn't go well winning the season.
Maybe not. I mean, rice is rice. Like at some point, it's like, okay.
I mean, I don't know. If you make me not eat for 2 weeks, I would love some rice.
Yeah, you're probably right. But would you ever, like, when they get this rice, they're like, this is the greatest rice ever. I've never had such fluffy, pillowy rice ever in my life. And I'm just thinking to myself, that rice.
I think they undercooked it or overcooked it.
I mean, I like, I'm a Boston Rob kind of guy when it comes to rice. I like the crunchy rice. So I would hope they would overcook it a little bit, but probably not. I mean, who knows? You're making it on a campfire. I've never made rice on a campfire. But I'm imagine like with the bare minimum, it's not an easy feat to test your rice. But hey, do you think do you think they're told like, all right, hey, like your water thing is 1 cup. So like if you're going to cook rice, this is the conversion for cooking
There's
the
little
rice.
measuring lines in the
Yeah,
canteen
like
they
do you,
receive.
like it's like very like Flintstone-esque, like prehistoric, but like do they tell them or they just like to like eyeball it and
I
go,
think they're
well,
just eyeballing.
I hope you have enough water in that, you know?
I mean, that is the one. You know what we're deprived of by there not being any like food provided to the players. You don't get any drama about the kitchen, like who controls the food, how's the food being cooked. It's silly, but it's very human, and so I do miss that a
Even
bit.
even like the fishing aspect, like there used to be like battles over who's fishing and like how important they are because they're bringing fish back. Like you don't like you've seen people get fishing gear, but like I've never seen people going out there like crushing a bunch of fish and bringing it back.
I think one of the weird aspects of a 26-day season, because there's very few off days, boredom isn't really a thing because it's basically sometimes you're like wake up, challenge, scramble, tribal, wake up, challenge, scramble, tribal, right? There's very little like just downtime. It's like you don't get days where you're just like, well, here we are, nothing happening, no journey, no reward challenge. Like, what do we do? When you had those 3-day cycles, you would have that. You'd always have like a down day of like, well, what do we do with ourselves?
Right. And so now, yeah, the game is just so condensed. You don't have that time.
I felt bored in like live reality games. Like, early on, we were like, okay, like we only have like 2 tribal councils today, and like we want the first ones, so we're just sitting there killing time. But it's I don't know, it's just different.
Yeah. So the challenge, very simple. You stand on a balance beam and you balance balls on a disc. There's a lot of controversy over what was fair and what was not fair, and some people are saying that Kyle is allowing the disc to rest on his forearm, and Sue was not. And some people are like, well, everybody had it resting on their forearm at some point. But
I mean, they have so many people watching them. If someone had messed up, they would have called them out.
yeah, and I think if you don't clarify that in the rules, then it's okay. And then if it's okay, then why, like, that's on you for not doing it like that, like if you see him doing it, then you should do it too, like especially if it helps. And I don't know how much of it helped. I think the wind being what it was and would have been a bigger factor than any kind of stability you could have on that plate, because that plate could be as stable as you want it to be, but the wind pushing the balls all over the place would really negate that.
What's interesting about this challenge is like, so I've done this in Surviving Bloomington, where I've stood on this very narrow balance beam with really big feet and had the balanced balls, and like the play I used, like you had to like kind of do it like this. There was no place to kind of grip it. So that was really fascinating to see if you can kind of like hold it in a sense versus you just had to kind of like lay it on your hands or with your fingertips.
Yeah, I've seen them where it's like that. I've seen them where the plate is attached to like a pole and you're holding the pole and having to keep it on there, but never like the knob at the bottom where you're holding it from that. Obviously Kyle goes on to win. Sue, what do you think about Sue? Like, she is like, if she wins an immunity, which at this point it's got to be feasible, right? That she could
will. She's gonna win something.
And with an idol and her winning immunity, like, could you imagine? Like, I don't like. That's pretty big. Like, that gets her a long way in this game. But she's still a big move away from being
Sue
even in the conversation.
Beat Kyle in the challenge. We're gonna hear her trumpet it in the confessional, and she's gonna gun for Kyle and vote him out that same round. I think that is ultimately what's gonna happen.
What if her big move is
Sue's big move?
She plays her idol for Kyle. They blindside Andy. Take him out.
I would gladly live in this world.
You know, Sue, this is your president speaking. Please don't do that. Don't use the idol. Don't get silly. Don't overthink it. Use it for yourself.
Or Gabe,
And
but Gabe's gone.
too late for that. We'll get to that here in a minute when we talk about tribal. Obviously, then the chaos ensues after the challenge where it's okay. Sam pitching Gabe to Andy and Teeny. Teeny wants to go Genevieve, but she will settle for Gabe right now. Like we talked earlier, like I think Teeny's aware that it doesn't have to be Genevieve today. She wants it to be Genevieve at some point. She wants to claim that move, but it doesn't have to be right now. Gabe wants Genevieve, and he's really gunning for that move to be his and for her to be gone. Rachel asked Kyle point blank. She's like, hey, man, who do you want? And he says Gabe, but Rachel wants Genevieve. This is my big problem with Rachel's game right now.
She's not pushing for what she wants.
Correct. Like she's asking Kyle, who is a guy that if he doesn't have that immunity, like you're not asking him that. Like you're voting for him probably. And so like when you ask him like, well, what do you want? Like who cares what he wants? Like you push the person that you want. You convince him. Because Kyle, in my opinion, would have been an easy vote either way. But he wants Gabe out, and so that's the route that they wanted to take.
Should Rachel have grabbed Teeny and said, "We both agree Genevieve needs to go. Let's go grab let's roll in Caroline, Gabe, and Sue, and say, hey, you all are under fire. We're your best out. Let's get Genevieve together."
I
Is that
think
what you should have done?
Maybe, but I think you can still make that move next week. But I think it's exactly what we talked about in the beginning is they valued breaking them up and weakening the Tuku over getting out Genevieve right now.
Which again, I think that's just the proper move.
Yeah, I think so. I think if some group has an edge, you need to level the playing field if you can. That way it makes your job easier and it makes your odds greater of moving forward. If you're not ever narrowing the playing field and making the numbers more even, then you're only putting yourself at a deficit to move forward in the game. And like for me, like if I'm playing Survivor, like I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I last as long as I can. And it may not be the popular move and it may not be the move that everyone wants. And maybe it is, but that's kind of the thought process is I want to try to survive as long as possible. Genevieve, we see her kind of open up. And this is where I thought Genevieve might be going home is because they get this confessional from her about she's like, it's possibly Gabe, but I really think it's me. Like really like, giving her the kiss of death to herself, like I think it's going to be me. Did you catch? So Genevieve says to Teeny, she goes, "Hey Teeny, it's either me or Gabe tonight," and Teeny just says, "Yeah," but then Teeny backtracks and is like, "No, it's Gabe. It's not you."
I mean, I think that was just Teeny not wording it right. Teeny just said, yes, both your name. I've heard both your names, but I am voting Gabe. Like that would have been a better approach versus like, yeah, it could be either one of you. It's like, oh, you're not making me feel warm. You're not making me feel warm.
Right. And so Genevieve's like, well, yeah, I'm definitely going home now. So they go to tribal and like I was bored. I was sleepy. It was sleepy time at tribal council this week. Like what was that? There was no live tribal. There was no chatter. There was no action. There was rain. It was dramatic in that sense, but there was no like extracurricular activities. It was a very straightforward tribal.
Do we need a live tribal every round? No, we don't.
No, I think it loses its luster. I think we got enough of them in a row where I think we're good.
This is why you need the super glue advantage, where you get to put super glue on someone's seats they physically can't get up.
You cannot move. you know, or you put you give them like a muzzle, like where they can't speak. Like you get a disadvantage that
This
you
is the
find
time out advantage.
disadvantages.
Go
Yeah.
into this little hut over here and stand with your face facing against the wall for the next 5 minutes while the rest of us talk.
Yeah, you get the disadvantage and you get the muzzle. That's your disadvantage. And that would be just corny and just like kind of Mickey Mouse, but I think I would laugh. I would think that's funny. You know, you could do it a number of ways. If you had a disadvantage like that and you wanted to play it on a player, you could say, well, you are removed from the live tribal. You can cast your vote, but you don't get to participate. You know, that could be the same thing. And I don't know if that's good or bad or how that plays out or if that's even a factor. I mean, because eventually if it's not you, then people should tell you what happened at tribal. So Sue, you see Sue with her bag in her lap, and they kind of, hint at the fact that she's pondering playing an idol for Gabe. I don't think playing an idol for Gabe was ever in the cards for her.
I mean, I think, again, had she known, we would have heard something about it, right? I was surprised at how effectively the two were left out of the loop here.
Yeah, and when I get worried when the vote is such a landslide and you don't know about it. So like last week, Teeny probably was not going to vote Saul. But then when she found out that Saul was the vote from Andy, she's like, well, I'm not going to be the one person not on the right side of the vote. And so she votes for him. Sue, on the other hand, it's not, I don't think she was aware that it was Gabe. Because I feel like if she had known that it was Gabe, then she would have voted for him if she wasn't going to play her idol, but instead she votes for Genevieve, which is voting the way that Gabe was voting. So that kind of creates this like weird dynamic after tribal in the start next week. Like, what is Genevieve going to think about Sue voting for her? Because I think it's pretty obvious that it was Sue. Unless they didn't get to that vote, which I think they did.
I mean, I don't think Genevieve's. I don't think you're going to see the same meltdown. I don't think Genevieve's going to take it personally. I think Genevieve is going to grab Sue and say, "Yeah, that was then. This is now. Now we need each other, and now let's play with each other."
Right. Do you think it's weird that Rachel has an idol, Sue has an idol, but it's almost like they're easily forgotten that they have it? Like there hasn't been any talk
for us,
over
the viewers, the players,
the viewers. Like I don't feel like outside of like when they flash their name and it says has immunity idol, like there's no talk about amongst the players on screen. There's no talk about, from the players
I'm
themselves.
sure there is talk about it. It's just not relevant, so we're not seeing it.
Okay. Well, I want there to be talk. I want them to use it. Like I had this very like eerie feeling when it comes to idols and not playing them, because last season I've gotten gun shy over people having idols and not playing.
We had 6 people go in a row with idols. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, and I just I don't think I could stand Sue going home with an idol in her pocket. That would crush me.
You'll be in mourning.
I will be
super mourning if that happens.
Yep, I'll dress in all black on the day that Sue is eliminated, and it'll be very, very, very sad day.
So, question for you:
Yep.
When Gabe is eliminated, he says, not with our Arnold Schwarzenegger pressure. He says, I'll be back, right? Which I took to say like I'm going to have a second chance playing this game at some point. What's your thoughts on players who make that call?
I think at this point, why not? Like in the world of social media, you have to market and sell yourself. And like you only have a finite amount of opportunities to really like tell someone like you're really wanting it. And that's a perfect opportunity for him to tell the world and tell the guy that makes the decisions like, hey, I want to come back. I feel like I got more in this game to play. Like, please bring me back. Now, do I think he will come back? I don't think so. I don't think he's a Survivor like 50 player. I don't.
So he's not in the Mount Rushmore, you're saying?
No, not at all. What did he do? He got voted out. He didn't. Is what it is. Like, yeah, I'm sure if you went and asked every player that got eliminated if they wanted to go back for a chance to win $1 million, most of them would say, absolutely, I would. He just was the guy who voiced it out loud on TV, and they kept it in for a reason. So, I mean, maybe there's where there's smoke, there's fire, man. Maybe there's something behind that.
I mean, like season 41 with Richard Fourier, right? Like we hear a lot of talk, like best player of the season, getting limited in 5th, and all this. I'm just like, really? Is he? It felt like a lot. I'm like, I mean, he's good, but is he really that good when he's getting voted out right now? I don't know.
Gabe wasn't even the best player on his tribe. So, like, you're going to tell me he deserves to come back? Me personally, I don't think so. I don't think he did anything, but hey, I don't make those calls. I don't make those decisions. Who knows? Maybe I'll apply and Gabe and I will be on the show together.
You could say, Gabe, I'll be your Sue.
I'll say, I was looking for a Gabe. When I got on this show, I needed a Gabe, and here he is.
That's my worst fear. I'll go on Survivor and someone's gonna say, let me be the JT to your Steve, and I'll be like, but Steven loses in that relationship.
Yeah. I'd be like, you know what? I would, if I got on, I would want Gabe and Gabler, and I would have the ultimate alliance.
What would the alliance name be?
I don't know. I haven't thought that far. I don't even think we would need one with those two. It would just be like, we are them dudes. Like, everybody knows.
So. Finally, the dudes alliance. It'll happen.
Yep. Gabe goes home. Gabe, I mean, I think we both agree is the correct vote. Sayonara, have a nice day. We might see you again. According to you, we will see you again. But
if anything, I was surprised Caroline didn't get the axe. I really thought she was going to be the first of that 3 to get cut. But we didn't say much about Caroline, but props to her for kind of reading the room and seeing like, yeah, it's our time, and let me make sure I'm on the correct side of this, and I'll bust an alley as well.
Yeah, I think she knows that people were gunning for Tuku, and I think she realized it wasn't going to be her. And so if it is going to be them, then she's got to be on the right side. And I think she makes the absolute right move to vote the way she does. I worry with her is like, same thing with Sue, is now they're one less person. Sue's a little bit more of protected than Caroline is, but like she's got to do a lot of work. Like there was a few weeks ago where I felt like I could see Caroline at the end, but that I don't think so anymore.
I think Caroline's going to do something clever, and I think she's going to get cut for it.
We'll see. I think she's got to make a move, and if she gets voted out because she's trying to make a move, then that's probably the way to go out, because she's realizing that that's a situation that she's in and she needs to do something. I just don't know what that move is, and who can she work against to get it done. I mean, really the big move is Genevieve vote out, or an Andy vote out, or a Sam vote out.
But I think what's fun about this point is like it feels so open. Like all the alliances are kind of scattered and dissolved, and we're not quite sure who are the tightest group of people, because everything seems to be marriages of convenience. And I think whoever emerges out of this finally in Final 7 will be important, because I'll be like, okay, here's what the end game truly looks like.
Do you think what we see as far as aligning and trying to make the final 3 right now, what we think, you think it's totally different 2 weeks from now?
I think it really depends on how people sync up. I mean, this season could very well be red and yellow just picks off blue, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
It's a lot of everyone hating their own tribe, right? Like
Right.
Teeny wants Genevieve out. Rachel's doesn't trust Sam. Will probably come from him at some point. Sue is an axe to grind for Kyle.
And with that, you're right. The routes to alliances is just like it's open. It's free game. It's like, and to be honest, I feel like sometimes like this week you could be aligned with somebody, and next week you may not be, just because like
Voting
people
blocks,
yep,
trust clusters, whatever you want to call them.
whatever buzzword you want to give it, like that's what it is, and that's what it feels like is happening. So, winners and losers, who you got?
Winners of the week, I will give it to weirdly Genevieve for scraping through. I think this was a real victory for her, and I think this will probably take a little of the heat off of her to an extent. I'm also going to give it to Sam and Rachel for finally being kind of drivers on the correct side of a vote. I think Sue is the real loser of the week, just because she was ultimately the one blindsided here.
Yeah, I when it comes to losers, I think Sue is on the downside here, just because you're right. She loses her number one. She's on the wrong side of the vote. Everyone else is voting one way, and she's unaware or doesn't care, and that's a problem. At this stage in the game, winners. I thought Teeny actually was a winner this week based on just the openness and the edit and her confessional. I really think she's a good talker, and she does a really good job of getting people to listen to her and value what she has to say. I think, when I looked at her this week, she didn't do anything like big or crazy. She, threw a name out there. That's a big name, and kind of got the seeds and the rumblings of that out there. But it was more so like her edit. It looked like a winner's type edit, after the fact, when you look back and go, oh, like this is the overcome moment. This is the struggle. This is the strife that you.
Because I think you said like, hey, after seeing this, either she's going home or this will.
Yeah. It's either a go home edit or it's holy shit, she might win edit.
So I guess, who are your top 3 players in contention for the win right now?
I mean, I still Teeny is up there after this week. Weirdly, I think Rachel is in there. I just think with her having an idol, I think it's going to be her or somebody else, and she's going to be able to save herself. And I think she's in it. And then I got to go with my girl, Sue. Always got to go with Sue. I mean, until Sue shows me that she can't win an immunity challenge, then like I'm going to keep her up there, just because like she could be the vote, but she could also turn things upside down by winning an immunity challenge and forcing people's hand of someone else having to go home.
So I'll say kind of my tier 1, I'm going to put Rachel, Genevieve, and Teeny. Tier 2 of like, could see it happening, but I'm not sure. I'll put Sam and Andy. I'll then give the Sue tier of like, has large chance of movement. And then I have strong doubts that Kyle and Caroline will win. I think Kyle's too juicy to target, and I think Caroline's going to get she's going to do something and then go home right after.
Yeah. To me, I think this Gabe vote out, and with Sue being on the wrong side and Caroline flipping and Kyle flipping, Kyle having immunity, I really think the others are going to start just picking those guys off. Like, it's clear that they're okay with Kyle going home. Once Kyle goes home, it's like, well, then who?
Mhm.
You all
I
Sue
think
could,
I think
Sue
Kyle
could be up there.
really would have been in a better off place had a non-blue con at home and he had a chance of them flip at 8, right? Where the numbers are so tight they need him no matter what.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to see the previews for next week? I didn't.
At the end
I
of the
was
episode, yes, but how much to recall, debatable. I think the one takeaway I had from the previews was Sam saying, I think Rachel has something.
Hmm.
And so we know Sam can make good reads. This could be interesting. I don't know whether it's an educated guess or something about her behavior, something she says really kind of tips him off. Like that's not something someone without an idol would do.
what was it? Did it look like when he said that it was like a confessional?
It was a
or was he
confessional.
okay?
I think it was a confessional.
So, I mean, that's just what we need is for Sam to turn his back and stab her in the back again and blow up her
Which he
game.
warned. He said like, hey, they shouldn't work with me. They're going to have to, but they shouldn't work with me. He's very transparent, at least to us, the audience, about what his true motivations are.
Right. Well, before we bounce, what we got? Plug and promote time. Casting, any games? What we got?
I mean, check out the if you're interested in the Mole. I just did a postseason interview or discussion with the cast of the Mole Ohio 2024, and so if you don't want to be completely spoiled as to the Mole's identity, check out that series on YouTube. I'm going to be sitting down with the creator and the production team for the Mole Ohio, hopefully early next month, to talk to them about that series. But if you want to apply and see what other live reality games are out there, there's plenty to apply to. Check out the LRG_casting at Instagram.com, run by the great Melanie Bartlett, or you can go ahead and check out on Facebook as well. There's the LRG casting group too.
Yep. There's I believe it's gonna start getting hot and heavy with applications and trying to get things casted, because I think you're gonna start seeing a lot of games popping up May to July, August of next year. So be on the lookout for that. And I always, want to give my 2 cents. If you're somebody who is unsure whether a live reality game is for you, just go do it. Go send the application in. If you get casted, don't be afraid. Everybody's nice. It's a fun time. It's great. The live reality games that I have done have been a very authentic experience, and I was thoroughly impressed and thoroughly enjoyed the ones that I've done. So,
hey, again, Teeny started their career in Survivor, Pennsylvania. So Teeny can do it, so can you.
Yep, you can use it as your resume builder for Survivor. Who knows, 51, 52? I mean, go get it. But if you want more of me in Off the Bench podcast, check us out. We're dropping content every day. College sports headlines, NFL, pro stuff, you name it. We're talking about it. So check us out. Give us a like, give us some love if you got a moment. But other than that, I hope everybody has a very happy, safe holiday. Eat as much as your face will take. Steven, safe travels to the West Coast. The best coast is what they say. And we'll be back again. I'm not really sure when, but I think we're going to try to get together at some point, and we're definitely going to recap the next episode. But we'll have to get together on that with the holidays. I'm sure everybody is going to be fiending for some Survivor recap, so that'll be coming. Outside of that, man, I appreciate you, and we'll see y'all next time. Peace.
See y'all.